as many of the other things that we're going to see on tow. In free flights.
Jay,
Yes.
I've had the rope come loose once at least down at Chester. And the reason was when the ring was inserted, the hitch clamped onto the ring but not freely into the ring. So I've gotten in the habit every time I ask whoever connects the rope to wiggle it, and if you can hear it shaking free, then you know it's correctly connected.
L13, they've got a ground tow hook on. Well, that belonged to in Nebraska and once used that for a launch. It's kind of difficult to release that one. Now, once you're off the tow.
And I talked to somebody, I think it was Leo, about the cost of service life. It's something like 2,000 leases was supposed to change in spring. Is that true?
It is 10,000 releases, which they equate to 2,000 flight operations. Assuming that there are going to be, on average, 5 actuations per flight. But that is a 10,000 operation replacement. Well, what do we have that's got a toast on it besides the Super Cup? The Atlantics I don't believe are toast. I think they're...
Some of them are.
Are they?
Yeah, they are. They all toast.
Okay.
I think they all toast.
We have changed those inside.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you count the number of flights that our ships take in a year, and then take, say, 5 operations per, take quite a few years to get 10,000 operations.
We're doing 2,000. We're doing what you said? How many years? 2 years? It's 2,000 flights. That's 1,000 flights a year. Pretty fast.
1,000 flights per year, but I don't think we're going to be close to that. In our annual operations per ship.
It's an either or too. It's either 10,000 operations or you can pick which way you want to do it. I do it on flights. It's 2,000 flights.
Yes, that's what they recommend. Okay, off of tow. What can happen off tow? Number one, mid-air collision. As we are flying on the ridge, very likely place to run into other gliders. Where else are you likely to run into gliders? Thermals, around turn points. Several different areas that you really need to pay attention to where you're going to expect to run into traffic. Flying over the field. What do we expect to fly over the field? Planes going into Roanoke. We've also got a military training route over the field. Second thing, now controlled flight into terrain. Does this happen in sailplanes? Particularly on a ridge. Mifflin 2 years ago, one glider came back with branches stuck in the landing gear well. From a ridge transition. He left shortly thereafter.
We've had at least 4 that I can think of.
That have actually gone down onto the ridge? Yes. Okay. Weather. What types of things are going to creep up in terms of weather that's going to be a problem for us in free flight? Summer thunderstorms. We had a spate of really bad summer thunderstorms a couple of years ago. It seemed like every week visibility was dropping from 5 to 4 to 3 miles, and you couldn't even see these things cropping up. Come back into the field on final glide, and all of a sudden you realize that there's a thunderstorm over the field. Where are you going to go? Wind and sink. How does wind affect your glide performance? How does sink affect your glide performance? Sometimes if the wind is strong, the sink is strong, it's going to be a tremendous effect. You think you're in good shape, and all of a sudden you're ready to land. So you always need to have a plan B. You need to know where you are going to go next. I think it was a month or 2 ago, AOPA had an article, No Place for Hope in Flight Planning. If you are thinking about your flight and say, I hope I can do this, I hope I can do that, you better have a very good out. Coming back to the field. Somebody said? Okay. Yes?
I wanted to mention about weather, and it's not directly applicable, but in January I was on the Intercoast Waterway boat, and it was facing about 3 minutes of visibility within 10 miles to less than a tenth of a mile. and fog, and we were going along navigating on my computer with the I was running GPS, but it was a charting program. And we're going on honking every 3 minutes and all that. People are going about 50 feet away. And it was kind of tense there for a while. And then about 30 minutes later, the exact opposite. Just cleared up. So it's not directly applicable, but things have changed quickly on the water and in the air.
And I will say one final thing about visibility. You see a rain shower over the field, I would not recommend landing in it. Visibility, it may not look bad from outside, but you get into that, your visibility goes to zero, and all of a sudden you find yourself and others flying a GPS approach into Newcastle in a sailplane. Awful. Do not want to do that twice. What we've got up here is 2005 annual safety report from Soaring Safety Foundation. And they indicate on the left there that 85% of the reported incidents occurred in flight. Breaking that 85% down of the accidents that occurred in flight, 18% occurred on takeoff. About 10% occurred during flight, during the course of flight. Most of them occurred on landing. 72% of the accidents occurred on landing. As I mentioned earlier, we've done a lot of training emergencies on takeoff. What about in the landing phase? As I'm coming into the field, the first thing, or as I'm moving along in my flight, at some point I've got to make a decision to land. And I like to make that decision very clearly so that once I cross that borderline, mentally across that borderline, everything I do is focused on getting that plane safely on the ground, getting myself safely on the ground along with it. Plan your approach. What's the goal of landing? To land safely. That's the only goal of landing, is to land safely and make sure that everything else, that you're not impacting other pilots. What type of traffic are you dealing with if you're going into Newcastle? When's the most likely time you're going to have a mid-air collision? On final approach. Where is the other traffic? Checklist is a little bit further down the list. We made a decision to land. We know how we're going to get there. We configure the glider, run through the checklist to make sure that the glider is properly configured. And then as you're flying that approach, keep track of what's going on. Are you where you expect to be? Is that 1,000-foot-a-minute sink off the southeast corner of the runway catching you? It caught me up at Mifflin a couple of years ago. Entered the pattern at about 1,000 feet and barely made the runway. How does wind affect the performance as well? If you've got a strong wind, what do you expect? Do you expect that 1,000-foot-per-minute sink? How is that going to affect your performance on downwind, crosswind, and on final? Pattern options. You are here. What should you do? That's exactly what you should be thinking. SSA really does not want us to continue to focus on flying a normal pattern, looking for that IP initial point. That's gotten a lot of people into trouble. They focus on getting to the IP